Hi everyone, Sarah and Ginger Cat from Sarah Homfray Embroidery with a stitch for you for our little stitch sampler projects if you're working along with me making this little sampler. So we're going to look today at blanket stitch, and we'll talk about buttonhole stitch as well because they're very similar. So I'm going to do that across here. So this one has got lots of different uses. I'm going to show you some samples when I've shown you the stitch and the things that you can do with it. So I'm just going to work across here. So it's quite nice for covering up the edge of some fabric if you want to make that a little bit neater, and I'll show you again what you can do with it on the edge because it's good for edging as well. So I'm going to go right across here with this one. So probably the hardest bit of this is where you actually start. So I usually start at the bottom of the stitch, so you end up with a row of stitching and there's some little bars sticking up. So I'm going to start at the bottom of that row of stitching there. I'm going to stab down into my fabric, so a little distance away and up. So if you kind of went diagonally across in a square, I guess that kind of distance, and then I'm going to make that little loop there, and then I'm going to come up immediately below that and immediately to the right of that, so it does form the sort of corner of the square, and I'm going to come up inside that loop, and if I just pull that slowly down towards me, you'll see it kind of makes that backward L shape. I'm going to put my finger on that there, and I'm going to go back down into the fabric. So I'm going to go a little distance apart. This is a blanket stitch. If you do them close together, it's a buttonhole stitch. So down into that fabric, little distance away, come up below it and to the left of that previous stitch, inside that loop, pull that loop tight, and you get that nice edging. So you get this row of stitching along the bottom and these little kind of arms going up. So the stitching sits outside this little bit of fabric, and that the arms go down into this bit that you want to attach to it. So it's sort of covering up the edge. You can do a longer one. You don't have to do them the same length. You can make them different lengths if you want to. You can do a little short one. Now, I haven't gone through the loop there, pulled that tight by accident, but that's easy enough to fix. So just put the needle under there, pull that loose again, go through the loop and then tension it. So do make sure you go through that loop. If you're a left-handed stitcher, then just go the opposite way to me. So I've started on the left and I'm going to the right, so you can start on the right here, you take a little stitch to the left, you come up immediately below it. So you're just mirroring what I'm doing, but go the other way if you're left-handed. I'm going to go all the way along there. Makes a really lovely decorative edge, this one. And then when you get to the end, do one last stitch there. You need to finish that stitch off, so I'm going to come up inside that loop, but that's not attached to anything at the minute, that's still loose, so I need to just tie that down. So all I do is take my needle down the other side of it just to finish off that stitch. I'm going to show you how to do it freehand now. So if you like to work in a frame, you can use that method that I have just shown you. If you like to do a bit more of a slow stitch kind of method and just have it in your hands, you can do it that way too. So I'm going to show you both. And I'm going to show you how to do it on the edge. So if you're somebody who doesn't really like these frayed edges on your slow stitching, I quite like them. I think they're really nice. But if you're a quilter, you're probably like, don't like a frayed edge, like a nice neat edge. This is a good stitch for doing over the edge. So I'm going to do it exactly the same way, but on the edge of your piece of fabric. So I'm just going to slide my needle all the way under there just to start it off. I've got a knot in the end, and that end will just pull underneath. That knot's hidden in between the fabric. And I'm just going to go through to the back because I want to start at the bottom. I want to start on the edge. So I'm going to do what I did before. I'm going to stab down into the fabric, little distance away. Instead of coming up through the fabric now, you're just coming through the loop. And that will just anchor it onto the edge, and then you can just stab down again and you can come out inside that loop. So just make sure you're inside it, so that's pulling that stitch down like that. And then we're just going to do that all the way along. So it's very easy to do, but just makes a nice neat edge. And if you do them close together, you get a buttonhole stitch. So if you want a really super neat edge, go for the buttonhole. It takes a lot more thread and a lot longer to do. but it will give you a really nice solid edge. So that nice solid edge of stitching. If you want a little bit of spacing to do the blanket stitch, and this is why it's called blanket stitch, because this would have been done around the edge of the blankets. Stay there, buddy, please. Then you can space that out a little bit and just go all the way along the edge. So I'm just going to go that far just to show you how to finish it off, because I'm just going to turn that over on the back and you can see the end of my thread there. So I'm just going to bring it through to the back and I'm just going to weave it underneath those stitches in that backing fabric so it doesn't come through to the front. Don't pull it too tight, just a nice even tension on that. And let's do another one just for good luck. And then we'll cut that off there. We've got that nice neat finish on it. So that's how to use it if you want to put an edge around your fabric. So I've just pulled some samples from my collection as well, because this is a wonderful stitch. I use this stitch so much for so many different things, and I just want to show you what you can do with it. So I found these little butterflies in my collection I did, so I've appliqued this fabric on. And it's symmetrical. It had a symmetrical design on it, so I just made sure I cut my butterfly down the middle, which is what the coloured background is. But I just wanted to show you it here because this is a good example of the buttonhole and the blanket stitch together. So here is the blanket stitch going around this curve here. It goes around curves beautifully, really nicely round curves. You can go around corners as well. I've got a video on how to turn your stitches around corners, so check that out if you're not sure how to do that. So there's a blanket stitch with the spacing, and you can see I've done a long one and a short one and just varied the lengths of those just for a bit more interest. And then if you do it really close together, you get the buttonhole stitch that makes this really nice solid edge of stitching. It's almost like a satin stitch with a little kind of edge on it, but they're exactly the same stitches. This is just was done close together, that one's done far apart, so I thought that was a really nice example of that. And it's really good for sewing down the fabric for doing applique. So we have a video on applique as well if you want to know some applique techniques. But here's a little heart that I did in my recent how to do some embroidered hearts video. And I've put this felt heart down, and I've actually stitched the felt heart onto this gold background with this buttonhole stitch. So I've appliqued the heart onto the fabric, and I've just gone around. I've used the blanket stitch because it's wider apart, not the buttonhole stitch, so you can see the spacing in that blue stitch there. And I've gone all the way around that and attached the heart on that way, so you can do that as well. And then I made this little 3-dimension heart as well, 3-dimensional heart. And I've done the same to attach the backing felt to the front embroidery as well. And I've just done this buttonhole blanket stitch. Not saying buttonhole, blanket stitch around here. You can see that white stitch, and I added the beads on as well to it. So every time you come back up through your loop, you can put a bead on and then work the next stitch and get this beautiful beaded edge. So you can do it for 3-dimensional things as well. So I've got another sample here. This is my little glasses case that I made. This is in the 20 things to make with your slow stitching video, and you can just see how I've put these two pieces of fabric together, and I've used my blanket stitch there to join them. So that's the felt inside, that's my slow stitching on the outside. You can see this blue blanket stitch here, these nice wide stitches, just making this lovely neat edge and sewing them together, so it kind of does two things in one go. So really nice for edging things as well. Here's another little one. Here's a little bag that I made, and I've gone all the way around the edge with this. And what I've done with this one, so I've gone around the edge and then I folded the bag into the middle, and then you can just whip around the 2 buttonhole stitches to join it. So you can use that stitch to actually sew something together with. So just another thing that you can do with it, another place that you can take this. It's such a versatile stitch, it's really good. And then the last thing is my little dragonflies. So you can do these 3-dimensional shapes with it. So buttonhole is used a lot in the stump work embroidery technique. That's 3-dimensional in embroidery if you're not sure what that is. And I made a little dragonfly in the stump work videos that we have, and you can make one of those dragonflies if you like. And this is another version of it, but the wings are using this blanket stitch, buttonhole stitch. So they're really close together now. So now we are doing a buttonhole because we want to cut this fabric out. So this has got a wire in it. I put the wire down first. I've stitched this buttonhole stitch over the wire, really nice and tight, really fine. And then I've cut out that shape from my fabric, and the buttonhole will keep the fabric in place, and it'll stop the fabric all fraying. And then you can make these 3-dimensional shapes. You can do it over wire, and you can shape them and form them. So you can do so much with this stitch. It's a really good one to have in your stitch bank knowledge, if you like. So definitely take time to learn this stitch. So if you're interested to know how to put those beads on the blanket stitch, you can check out this video up here. This is the heart video. We made some lovely embroidered hearts, and that technique is in there. So do go and check that one out. Give this a thumbs up if you've liked it. And Ginger Cat and I will see you next time.